Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and a new Diablo 4 video. Today I'm back to talk builds, specifically after our mid-season update featuring those new Malignant rings. All but one class is making fantastic use of their ring, leading to wonderful quality of life updates or just insane DPS increases. On top of that, since the original look at the top builds, some things have progressed, we have new versions of builds, more to talk about after the lots of testing and so on, and specifically for best builds, it needs to be one that can tackle at least a tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon and at least a Duriel, if not Uber Lilith, very convincingly. So overall, it's what is the best build for each class in mid-season after the new testing and new rings. That's what we're here to discuss. With that said, let's jump in first with my main class, the Necromancer. So what is the Necromancer's best build overall in the mid-season state? I think it's Bone Spear. Despite the massive nerfs and the changes to the damage buckets that led us to expect Bone Spear maybe isn't the clear king of Necromancer anymore, I think it still is. However, the gap is noticeably smaller now, and there's arguments for Infamist or even the awesome Blood builds, depending on the content you're doing. But even then, if I was looking at every format of gameplay, single target, speed clear, open world even, and of course tier 100s, I just think Bone Spear tackles it best compared to other builds having strengths and weaknesses. Even more so after the Malignant ring update, in which we got our sacrilegious sort of effect back. Now our corpse explosions and corpse tendrils are auto-triggering regular enough that we don't have to press them ourselves in most cases, and Bone Spear can just send out more spears because of it. That's a massive improvement for our gameplay outside of single target, where you're able to happily group up targets without even thinking about it, and maintain your corpse explosion damage buffs, of which you have multiple, without pressing the button. You've got your dedicated corpse tendril on cooldown whenever you need it outside of those auto triggers, which can be important and very helpful in say tier 100s. Having said that, I'd still not run this new ring in single target. I'd slap on a raw DPS increaser like the sacrifice ring or something of that nature if I was going to min-max. But ultimately the gameplay comes down to decrepifying everything and using Bone Storm whenever possible, and then just sending Bone Spear after Bone Spear. Even more ideal if you had that crazy uber unique ring, the Starless Sky, which makes your Bone Spear cost less essence if you just keep only casting Bone Spear. Maybe you get Grandfather, the two-handed sword, increasing your crit damage by up to 100% times, which is just nuts. Generally, I think Bone Spear just benefits from the Ubers most out of all the builds. And now we have target farming, it's more likely long-term you'll get them. Compared to Infinite Mist, you don't have to build up damage over time, you just throw a Bone Spear and it just kills it, and you have incredible resource gen thanks to Tibault's will providing 50 essence every 4 seconds per meta dash, and of course your main resource aspect, the exposed flesh. Bone Spear's biggest issue really is just being squishier in tier 100 clears compared to your, damage immune Infinite Mist or even the Blood builds. So you just play at a medium to longer range on average, killing enemies before they even get to you. But if you reach peak power and start pushing the build towards your Ubers and so on, you reach the point, especially with a new ring, where you can kind of just ego run through everything anyway. It is undeniable that Infinite Mist ignores damage through complete immunity, and so it flies through the dungeons, even tier 100s, through that. It's also true that Blood builds are way tankier and way burstier. They've got all that healing and overhealing, fortify, the massive health in general, but it requires more skill to actually play just because of the key passive timing, making sure you don't waste that on the wrong skill. It's just a fact that Bone Spear has higher consistent DPS, the DPS is instant rather than built up, and with Ubers being possible and the new Malignant ring, Bone Spear's potential is much higher, keeping it for me the top build overall. As we push into late season, I think that's only going to become more true, but there is a good chance that your best pick for Blood Forges could be something like Infinite Mist, but we'll talk about that at the time. Moving on from Necromancer, let's talk about Druid. After a quick talk with our resident Druid player, Cotton, he's confident in his best build overall pick, and it's a simple one, the Tornado Wolf. With the new Malignant ring, this is even more so the case thanks to fantastic quality of life, but also super impactful ability to pull groups in together again. It means for your mob clear, grouping up enemies and tornadoes, spamming them down is very easy and also very efficient. So mid-season post-Malignant update, Druids have got better mob clear, right? Which leads to even better speed clearing and tier 100 pushing. All you really need is some spirit generators going, and then you can just blindly spam tornadoes to your heart's content, making it very easy to play. This version of Druid is fast and even semi-range, so you can be flying through the dungeons at great speed, but you can slow down and play even a medium range if you want or need to, maybe during tier 100s, during tougher for pulls. With the ring, if you end up grouping the enemies, you can smash and CC them though, avoiding having to slow down at any point, which means it's a very impactful update. However, it's not really relevant for single target, where overall Cotton still thinks it's the same build, but instead of running that new unique ring, you swap on Blood Howl, the crit aspect, for better single target DPS. We've been seeing some great Uber Lilith clears from Tornado Druid, and while Stormclaw is very comparable as a build, it just seems like the higher DPS potential goes to Tornado once it gets going. And so I think Tornado Druid is the one for that. But nothing about these builds is essentially broken, like crazy in a way we'd not think we'd see it in Season 2, whereas the same cannot be said for the next 3 classes. So I think there's a good chance that Druid might be a top pick in Season 3 if they go about it the way we expect. Speaking of which though, let's now cover the best overall build for Rogue. I believe this to be the combo point cap breaking pick, using Condemnation to maximize the bug itself. In short, Tibault's will is breaking the combo point cap of Rogue via the maximum resource stat. It's literally increasing the maximum combo points possible for the class, which will spike a core skill's damage when consumed. Previously, you'd be powering up to say 3 combo points, but now you can amass a max total of 23, which leads to the literal one-shot bursts on not just Duriel, but yeah, Uber Lilith too. Condemnation is important unique to this bug though, because it helps you generate 3 combo points way faster using basic skills, so you skyrocket the current combo point cap all the way to the new max. We fully expected this bug to then be removed at some point, because I don't believe they intended this effect to happen. I think it's an accident. And yet after the recent dev talk, it was highlighted as comparable to the current state of Ball Lightning Sorcerer. So essentially the combo point bug seems to be here to stay for Season 2 at very least. So focusing on maximizing a build is well worth the effort, since we think it will stay. And while Twisting Blades is a fantastic functional spec, we don't think it's the best option anymore. With this class breaking mechanic currently happening, I think you should use that. There's a downside to it though, the fact that the build lends itself really hard to single target burst, but less so mob clear and your tier 100s. So Cotton recently put together a build that kind of attempts to make the mob clear much better, and it has come out very good. The build makes use of the rather strong vampire power, Hemomancy, which pops damage in large AoE around you every 4 seconds. The thing is, that's a build based on your health, which you might imagine might not be ideal for a rogue, but if you make the Hemomancy damage a guaranteed crit, you increase its damage through other sources, it actually becomes a very busted AoE for rogues, leading to a fantastic build for speed clearing and of course pushing tier 100s while still being completely busted for one-shot burst. If you'd like to see that build and get all the details, then we have a video on the channel for that right now. And what's funny about all of this is the new Malignant ring for rogues isn't relevant. It distracts enemies for a few moments, which makes them actually awkward to kill at times, and the shadow even has health, so it can die sooner than you might imagine. It's awkward, hardly relevant, and not worth using, so a very strange one. Alright, so now it's time for the straightforward, very obvious one that's for Sorcerer. Ball Lightning, of course. While Sorcerer's other builds are actually doing great, like Blizzard, Ball Lightning in its many variations just wins out. That's even more the case with the Malignant Ring update, where Sorcerers effectively gain 60% times damage constantly during combat with it equipped. Where is the logic in that? They're already dealing the most consistent and effective DPS without any real setup. You'd think they'd get a ring that was more interesting, silly, utility, boost a different spec, anything like that. But no, they just get a massive DPS increase, and obviously it's very effective. I don't think I really need to explain why Ball Lightning's so good at this point, so in short, rotating balls that kill anything that comes near you while dealing the most insane DPS in the game, if not the highest burst, is very good. And they're also shockingly tanky the moment they get going, and super fast with their movement speed and teleports. No one is clearing tier 100s faster than them, and while other builds might one-shot bosses, the Sorcerer still provides the highest consistent DPS. There's no build-up or ups and downs in the DPS, it just gets going instantly and goes the best. In your tier 100s, you're essentially just walking through, everything dies, even if it's a pack of elites or a rare butcher spawn or the final boss. The only real debate here is what version of the Ball Lightning should you use, like the Ice Shards version, the Arc Lash version. All of them are going to be good, but at this point Josh thinks it's just Ball Lightning, like no more Arc Lash. Basically, with the ring and a vamp power change to allow for it, there's no Moonrise vamp power fitting in anymore, so you're just casting Ball Lightning alone. You're still going to be near the capped attack speed anyway, and you're still generating infinite mana, so there's no real downside anymore. If you'd like more detail on the topic though, we of course still have a full build video on exactly this on the channel right now. Finally, that brings us to Barbarian, which actually has a wider range of builds to consider in mid-season too. However, I still think one build does it overall best, and I think that's still Hammer of the Ancients. Their new ring has been extremely impactful, providing a guaranteed way to get a critical strike on your Hammer of Ancients, but also things like Upheaval or Deathblow. All three of these specs are super good now, and were already really good before. A great way to destroy both in single target and tier 100s. But overall, I think it's Hammer that still deals the highest numbers in a vacuum, while also having great small range AoE potential for a mob clear. As a class, it's tanky and survivable, and while the builds feel similar since the skills on your bar never really change all that much, it does have more variety than before. With this ring, you just have to spend 100 Fury within 3 seconds, and that makes your next cast of Hammer, Upheaval or Deathblow not just a crit, but a crit that can deal up to 30% times more damage. Any build that works on that, these three then, are significantly better. All of them were top picks before this ring, and this just pushes them above the rest in my eyes. If I had to pick one, then I'd go for Hammer of the Ancients. We're seeing numbers of 500 million on average with a proper setup, and the thing is you can get higher than that. Either way, you're going to be killing all the single target bosses in one hit, and with the higher scaling, you can even one-shot the world bosses, which is silly. The builds all have awkward similar AoE ranges, which can be a bit of a problem, but with the hammer you can get the aspect to make the damage sort of quake outwards, which really helps. Outside of the ring, the build just benefits from that unique, the Banished Lord's Talisman, to skyrocket the overpowered damage potential, and you can get a guaranteed overpower from Blood Boil, the vampiric power, every 20 seconds. You've got the massive damage from the talisman, you've got the guaranteed crit from spending 100 Fury with the new ring, and you've got your shouts and the other methods like Tibault's Will, just to set up more and more. All of this is more than enough to kill any boss, any elite, whatever you're doing really. And as we get later in the season, Barbarian's going to be great because with the target farming and getting more aspects, more uniques, better versions, even Ubers, they benefit very well. So I think Hammer of the Ancients is a safe top pick, with Deathblow and Upheaval also being really good options too. But there you have it. That's been my look at each class and its current top builds as we reach that firm point of mid-season. The ring update has been really nice for everyone except rogues, with sorcerers and barbs getting the most consistent value, while druids and necromancers probably swap theirs on and off based on what they're doing. Rogues can't be too upset though. Their broken overcap on the combo point stuff is still very silly. I hope to be back soon enough though to talk about other builds that are great options for the classes, but until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.